I want to break Terraria. The easiest way of doing this is by hacking the game. But how am I going to hack the game? Well, there are hack clients, however I wanted to make my own. So I decided to make my own, and what started off as a simple health hack slowly turned into a giant project. When it is finished, I plan on making it so the users can input their own code to run in Terraria. Kinda sounds familiar, but anyways, what even is a hacked client? According to the definition, it is a modified version of the game's content. So I guess technically I'm not making a hack client, but it's the same thing. Basically what I'm doing is reading through the game's working memory and modifying it to my likings. Now for those wondering, I should have done this in C++, however I didn't feel like learning that, so I did it in C#. Now this isn't a new thing. Other people have created similar programs, for example QTRHacker. It currently has more and better features, however in my opinion mine is easier to use. Although mine isn't downloadable, and that one is. I would highly recommend it if you felt like hacking Terraria. And there's a program called Cheat Engine which allows you to modify the memory of any program or game, which is what I use to help me get to the point at where I am now. But I know you guys are here to see me break the game and not just talk about it, so let's get into it. So let's start off with making weapons do more damage. As you can see, I have now modified the damage value of the copper short sword, and it is not usually supposed to do this much damage. I can also modify the damage of other weapons, but this is just something simple I can do. Another thing I can do is make it so I can have infinite summons. This is a pretty popular one, but have you ever wanted to do it in vanilla Terraria? As you can see, I can keep spawning summons, and I can have multiple different types. But these are both really simple things, and can both be easily replicated in Tmod Loader. However, let's move on to stuff that would be slightly harder to make a mod for. Infinite flight in Terraria is already possible with the Soaring Insignia, but what if you didn't want to kill the Empress of Light just for that? You could hack the item in, but using it would require another accessory slot, so I made a hack that makes it permanently enabled. So as you can see, I can fly for as long as I want while only having the wings. So infinite flight is cool, but what about infinite health? So although I could make it so the player never takes damage, I think it's more interesting if I allow the user to modify the player's health. As you can see, I can modify it to whatever I want, even negative numbers. Along with health, I can also modify the position. This can allow me to phase through any blocks I want, however not outside the map, but we'll get to that later. So modifying the player's position is neat, but what about modifying a projectile's position? This isn't actually any harder than modifying the player's position. Much like the player, I can now phase projectiles through the walls, given that autopause is enabled. I can also modify the scale of projectiles and NPCs. As you can see here, I have modified the scale of this penguin. You may also notice that I've increased the penguin's health by a little bit. All of the hacks so far have been modifying simple values. But what if I want to modify the actual game's code? If it wasn't already hard enough to find the memory locations of the variables, it's going to be way harder to find the memory location of the functions. Now for those who don't know, the computer does not actually run the C# code. It converts it to a lower level and then runs it. So although I can decompile the game's code and read it, it's way different than reading the actual code that the computer runs. The code in the working memory can be viewed as assembly. Now I don't know how to read assembly, however it didn't really matter because I was still able to create the hacks without knowing how to. Although I'm guessing it would be way easier and faster if I did know how to read assembly. But it is what it is, and what it is increasing the player's health, the max health to be specific. This is updated every frame, and so I couldn't just modify a value, I had to actually modify the game's code. So after doing so, I was able to change the max health to be whatever I want. I could even make a super load to imitate the 1 health challenge in vanilla Terraria. Something else I can do is modify projectiles IDs. Now I should have been modifying it through the in-game code, however I wasn't, but either way I can now shoot bombs. Using the same logic, I can use the Mega Shark to shoot bouncy boulders like Redigit was using in a 1.4.5 spoiler video. So far these hacks have been simple code changing. And going back to when I moved the player, what if I wanted to go outside the world borders? Unfortunately, there's code forcing the player back into the world bounds. However, fortunately, I can just remove that. As you can see, outside the world border, it gets a little glitchy. That's why you're not supposed to be back here. Now, I could explore this more, however, I have a plan for another video. All of what I've just shown you is currently possible with my hack client. But what about other stuff like modifying tiles? Before I stopped working on it, there was a giant list of other features that I wanted to add. Some of the items in the list would directly impact my auto fisher. And the reason for why my auto fisher isn't complete is because my hack client isn't complete. And I don't think my hack client is going to be complete anytime soon. However, if you want more details or you want to see more examples of what I can do with it, join the Discord server linked in the description down below.